In a humble hut beneath the shade of palm trees, an old couple resided with their son and daughter. Their lives were filled with happiness until illness befell the father, leaving him on his deathbed. Gathering his children close, he offered them a choice: his blessing or his meager possessions. The son, driven by greed, chose the property, while the daughter, guided by wisdom, chose her father's blessing. With his last breath, the father bestowed upon her his heartfelt blessings, leaving her richer than any material wealth could offer. Soon after, the mother followed her husband to the afterlife, leaving behind the same choice for her children. Again, the son opted for property, while the daughter, true to her values, embraced her mother's blessings. With her brother's insistence, the girl was left with only a small pot and a corn-cleaning vessel. Yet, from this seemingly meager inheritance, she forged her own path to prosperity. Her pot became a lifeline as neighbors borrowed it in their times of need, repaying her with corn. With each loan, her hunger waned, and her spirits lifted. And when she stumbled upon a pumpkin seed, she planted it and reaped a bountiful harvest. Meanwhile, her brother, idle and envious, learned of her thriving existence through a passing youth. Despite his misfortunes, the sister's resilience and generosity shone brightly, earning her the admiration of all who crossed her path. Through her humility and kindness, the girl transformed her hardships into blessings, proving that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in the richness of the heart. As dawn broke, the brother, consumed by envy, hastened to his sister's hut and seized the pot and mortar, convinced of his cleverness. But when his sister awoke and found her utensils missing, she suspected theft. Undeterred, she turned to her bountiful pumpkin tree, its branches heavy with ripe fruit. With the abundance of pumpkins, the sister ventured to the village, exchanging them for corn. Word spread of the exceptional sweetness of her pumpkins, and soon she had more than she needed. Earning enough to acquire new utensils, she felt a sense of richness in her modest possessions. Yet, envy lurked in the shadows, embodied by her brother's wife, who sought a taste of the coveted pumpkins. The sister, aware of her brother's wife's intentions, initially refused but relented upon learning the servant was her brother's. She gifted the pumpkin but refused payment, inciting the envy of her sister-in-law. Driven by his wife's distress, the brother vowed vengeance, intending to uproot the pumpkin tree. Confronting his sister, he accused her of deceit and threatened to destroy her beloved tree. Defiant, she declared that cutting the tree would cost her hand, but her warning fell on deaf ears. In a fit of rage, her brother severed both the pumpkin and her hand. Ransacking her home, the brother stripped her of everything and sold their house, leaving her homeless. Despite her agony, she tended to her wound and sought refuge in the forest, hiding from her brother's wrath. For 7 days, she roamed the forest, surviving on fruits and sheltering among the branches to evade predators. As despair settled in, she yearned for relief from her thirst and pondered her bleak future with only one hand. Meanwhile, the king's son, weary from hunting, sought respite beneath a tree. Stirred from his slumber by tears falling upon his face, he discovered the one-handed girl, her plight awakening compassion within him. Curiosity piqued, the king's son sent his servant to investigate the source of the tears falling upon his face. Upon discovering the girl in the tree, he approached her with gentle inquiry, offering her solace and a listening ear. As the girl poured out her sorrow, the prince, moved by compassion, extended an invitation for her to accompany him home. Despite her reluctance to be seen, the prince assured her he would protect her privacy. With quick thinking, the prince arranged for a curtained litter to transport the girl discreetly. Hiding herself in the bushes, she waited as the litter was brought close. Under the cover of the curtains, she joined the prince, hidden from prying eyes. Disguising his intentions, the prince feigned illness, using the guise to have himself carried home swiftly. Concerned, his parents sent for him, sending a pot of hot gruel to ease his supposed ailment. In reality, the prince's illness was a ruse, a means to secure the girl's safe passage to his home. The following day, he emerged from his feigned sickness, escorted to the palace in regal procession, drums heralding his return. With skillful deception, the prince ensured the girl's arrival at the palace, where her fate would soon intertwine with that of the royal family. Having arrived at the palace, the king's son boldly declared his desire to marry the girl he had met in the forest, despite her missing hand. Though the king and queen harbored reservations about their son's choice, they could not deny his wish and agreed to the marriage. Over time, the girl endeared herself to her in-laws with her kindness and diligence. When she bore a child, her joy knew no bounds, even as her husband departed on a journey assigned by his father. Meanwhile, the girl's envious brother, having squandered his own fortunes, learned of his sister's marriage and sought to ruin her happiness. Spitefully, he approached the king with deceitful lies about his sister's supposed witchcraft and murderous past, inciting the king's wrath. Blinded by anger, the king and queen believed the brother's fabrications, deciding to cast the girl out of the town. Though the brother urged for her death, they settled on exile to avoid their son's retribution. With a heavy heart, the girl bid farewell to her luxurious life, taking only her son and a simple cooking pot. Despite her love for her husband, her priority was her child's safety. Venturing into the forest, she found herself facing danger as a snake approached her. Terrified, she froze, but the snake spoke, offering an unusual bargain. In exchange for shelter from the sun, the snake promised to protect her from the rain. With nothing to lose, she agreed, allowing the snake into her pot. Soon, another snake arrived, seeking the first one. Once the coast was clear, the girl released the first snake, and it disappeared into the forest. Grateful for her help, the snake invited her to follow him home. Trusting her newfound companion, the girl followed the snake through the forest until they reached a serene lake. Encouraged by the snake, she and her baby bathed in the cool waters, but tragedy struck when the child suddenly vanished beneath the surface, lost among the depths of the lake. Heartbroken and terrified, the girl rushed back to the bank, fearing the worst for her baby. Desperately, she searched every crevice and hidden spot, but her efforts proved futile. Overwhelmed with grief, she cried out in despair, believing her child lost forever. But the snake, ever wise and helpful, urged her to try once more, insisting she use both arms this time. Though skeptical, she obeyed, and to her astonishment, her wounded arm brushed against something soft and familiar, a miracle. Her baby, unharmed and laughing, lay nestled between two stones. Overjoyed and amazed, the girl realized that her missing hand had been miraculously restored during the rescue. Tears of gratitude streamed down her face as she embraced her child, her heart overflowing with thanks. Determined to repay her kindness, the snake proposed they journey to his family's home, where they would show her immense gratitude. Despite her protests, the snake insisted, guiding her through the forest to their tree dwelling. In the warmth of their hospitality, the girl found solace and comfort. The snake's family tended to her needs, ensuring her rest and nourishment. With each passing day, she felt a sense of belonging and safety, grateful for their unwavering support. Meanwhile, unaware of his wife's plight, the prince fell ill during his travels, nursed back to health by strangers who knew nothing of his royal identity. Upon his return to the palace, he was met with the shocking news of his wife and child's supposed deaths. Devastated and confused, the prince demanded to see their graves. The king, relieved to have prepared elaborate tombs to conceal the truth, led him to the garden, where the prince grieved in solitude. For 7 days, the prince mourned, his sorrow consuming him. Yet, as time passed, he resumed his duties, though the pain of his loss lingered, unspoken but ever present. One morning, as the girl contemplated her husband, she resolved to return home, seeking news of him and hoping he still mourned for her. Reluctantly, the snake bid her farewell, advising her to accept only his parents' ring and casket as gifts. Though offered riches beyond measure, the girl declined, her heart set on reuniting with her beloved husband. With a heavy heart, she parted from the snake's family, their kindness forever etched in her memory. The two snakes watched in dismay as the girl insisted on taking the ring and casket, despite their reluctance. With a heavy heart, they conceded, knowing their son had revealed their magical properties to her. Offering their blessings, they bid her farewell as she set off on her journey. As she neared the town where her husband lived, the girl sought shelter under a grove of palm trees. With a simple request to the ring, a magnificent palace materialized before her, complete with servants and luxuries. Grateful and weary, she entered the palace, finding solace in its comforts. Days turned into weeks, and the girl and her child thrived in their newfound home. However, rumors of the mysterious house reached the king's ears upon his return from war, prompting him to investigate. Positioned atop a hill overlooking the palace, the girl anxiously awaited the arrival of the king and his entourage. With a veil obscuring her face, she greeted them warmly, inviting them to rest within her home. As the king and his ministers indulged in the lavish hospitality, the girl's brother stood among them, inwardly tormented by guilt. Though he longed to flee, he remained, compelled by duty to serve the king. As the meal concluded, the king implored the girl to reveal her identity and story. Seated gracefully, she recounted her tale, her veiled gaze avoiding her husband's piercing stare. Midway through her narrative, the prince, overcome with emotion, recognized his wife and child. Outraged by the deception, he demanded answers from his father, who sat stunned by the revelation. The girl, unmoved by the turmoil, calmly finished her tale, revealing her brother's betrayal and her subsequent trials. With forgiveness in her heart, she urged her husband to let go of the past and embrace their newfound happiness. Moved by her grace and resilience, the prince embraced his wife and child, vowing to cherish them always. And as the sun set on their troubled past, a new chapter of love and forgiveness began for the reunited family. The king, relieved that someone had acted more unjustly than himself, turned to the girl and asked what should be done to her brother for his deceitful actions. Put him out of the town, she replied calmly. Respecting her wishes, the king ordered his guards to exile the brother, ensuring that he faced the consequences of his treachery. With the threat of her brother removed and justice served, the prince and his wife embraced their newfound happiness. Together, they eagerly looked forward to a bright future with their beloved son. Leaving behind the shadows of the past and embracing the promise of tomorrow.